Welcome to the Physicians and Properties Podcast, the show where we teach you how investing in real estate can give you the freedom to practice medicine and live life how you want.
Doctor!
Now, here's your host, Dr. Alex Schloe.
Where is your money going? When the money hits your account, what does it do for you? And the analogy that I like to use for this is, we live in a house right now. We have cameras. So if someone comes into the door, we see them come in. The question is, where are they going in the house? Are they going into the dining room, the living room, the kitchen, the bathroom? Where do people go after they hit the door? And the same thing is true with your money. When the money hits your account, where is it going?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Physicians and Properties Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Alex Schloe. Today, we had an absolutely amazing podcast. If you are thinking about, hey, is there a possibility for me to take a year off and travel the world with my family? The answer is yes. But in this podcast episode, we talk about that. We talked about the fact that money is actually simple and you can brainwash yourself to create the success that you want. And real estate can give you that freedom. Entrepreneurship could give you that freedom to just take a little step back so you have some breathing room. You have some room to think. You have some room to spend more time with your family. This episode was amazing. This was with Dr. Latifat of MoneyFit MD and was an absolutely incredible podcast episode. I guarantee you will learn something from this podcast that will change your life. And if you do, please share this podcast episode with someone who you think will benefit from it. So without any further ado, let's get started with today's amazing podcast episode with Dr. Latifat. Dr. Latifat, welcome to the Physicians and Properties Podcast. I'm so glad to have you on the podcast. I think we tried to schedule this quite some time ago. You were traveling and time zones and everything else got crazy. So really excited to make it work. Thanks for calling in from California. How are things going?
I am doing fantastic. Thank you for inviting me here. Thank you for, sharing what you do with the world. And I look forward to sharing whatever I know with the audience. And hopefully that helps at least one human out there.
I'm sure it will. It's been really fun to follow your journey and learn from you on different social media platforms and your podcast as well. So we'll make sure to talk more about that. But before you started MoneyFit MD, before you traveled with your family for a year because of real estate, what was life like? What was it like when you were getting into medicine? And take us back to that time period.
Feels like a lifetime ago. It actually was a lifetime ago because that girl is not her anymore. And I want to just acknowledge that because I think that's important because we all change in ways that could be indescribable. But if you told me 10 years ago, 15 years ago that I was going to be this, I would have laughed at you because not related to my life at all. But I grew up in Nigeria, moved to the US about 25 years ago, went to undergrad in LA, med school in San Francisco, residency in New York, and then back to California for fellowship and then post-fellowship life as an attendant. And my entire goal in life was to be a great physician. That was my goal. I want to be good at what I do. I want to take care of my patients. I care about mentorship. I care about access. I care about disparities. And I would have died happy as one of those GI doctors that can smell diagnosis from 10 feet away. That was my entire goal. But then in fellowship was when I had this moment where I realized that if I wanted to be that, if I wanted to be a good physician, I had to be willing to walk. I had to be willing to not be afraid of losing my job as a physician. And I'd seen my attendants, amazing, smart individuals who, over the course of practicing medicine, were burning out in medicine. And, you could see their shoulders down. And I just felt like I had sacrificed too much to regret going into medicine. I had sacrificed. There was a time in my life where after moving to the US, I did not see my mother for 5 years. That was a sacrifice that she paid for me to be a physician. And she did not pay all that sacrifice. I did not pay all that sacrifice to only be a physician and have my degree be all that I'm proud of, have a life that I was not proud of. So what that meant for me was I had to start learning about money. At that point, I knew nothing about money. I did not know who I owed. I knew I had student debt, but I just knew there was some Auntie Sally Sally Mae, that used to write me letters and I would just sign it like forbear, defer, whatever, just get it out of my face. And so at this point, I'm like, Latifat, you have to change things. You have to get into your finances so that you can just, at no point did I think about reach or wealth. I just wanted to have a choice. That was all I wanted. At that point, I had 2 kids. Now we have 3 children. And I also knew that I wanted to be the kind of mother that was not apologizing for choices she thought she did not have. Meaning that I don't want to feel bad for being on call. If I'm on call, I want to stand up and say, yes, I'm on call. And it is what it is. This is how I choose to spend my time. So all that to say that I started figuring out my finances. This is now about 9 or 10 years ago, just to literally save myself in future so I don't hate my life. And what that journey led me to was realizing that money was not something that many of us are taught about. People don't talk to us about it. There's a lot of shame and guilt about money. So I started demystifying money for myself because now it was like I wanted to save my own life in future. That journey led me to learning about the basics of money in a way that made sense. I hated budgeting. I still hate budgeting. I hated spreadsheets. I still don't like them, but I do them to a degree. But I figured out how to do money in a way that made sense for my life. And after that, I started teaching others how to do it, which my friends, my colleagues started asking for help because at no point did I want to start a business. But that journey, though, led me to helping so many people that I knew that I had something that was life-changing. I had primary care doctors whose net worth were now 7 figures before age 40 and things like that. And so that was where my own personal journey started from. And then eventually I rolled my eyes and went, okay, I should probably teach people how to do this, which is how Money Fit MD started. And now it's starting to, the podcast, the book. We have our 2nd book coming out next month, and the Money School for Women Physicians that I run.
That's a beautiful story. I think, a lot of us, well, one, as physicians, we never get taught about money, right? And you hit on that. I don't know about you, but there was not a single financial class in med school, taxes, investment, even how to run a practice or a business. There's none of that. I'm thankful for the White Coat Investor. That was what led me to start this podcast too, was there's just not a lot of education in the space, and real estate education and small business and entrepreneurship education that's out there. And I think a lot of that is surrounded around fear of money. What are your thoughts to that? What's kind of, your thoughts if someone's like, hey, I have a lot of fear of money, or I feel like I maybe have a scarcity mindset when it comes to money. How do you kind of help folks work through those fears?
Absolutely. One of the things I love about money is that money is honest, actually. Money tells the truth. So many times we're afraid of the truth, and that's why we avoid money. We don't know it consciously, right? Subconsciously, that's the truth. But consciously, you're like, I'm not good with money. I get overwhelmed by it, right? No one has taught me. I did not grow up in money, and all of this other things that are acceptable culturally, right? But the truth of it is that money tells the truth. And many times we're afraid of the truth, right? We're like, okay, maybe I earn $250,000 a year. And if I look at my finances and it's not accumulating, then it tells me that I'm not doing a good job. And most of us don't want to hear that we're not doing a good job. We forget the fact that it's just a data point that we can now use to move forward, but we're not taught how to separate our identity from money. And so I think a lot of fear that people have about money is really a projection of the fear we have about something else, about looking at ourselves, about doing the hard things, about not having excuses, right? And what I like to teach people or explain to people is when you work on your relationship with yourself, which is the more you like yourself, the easier it is for you to actually do money, right? And anytime you find a weakness, it's not a problem. It just tells you, just spotlight the next place for you to work, right? The next place for you to make a change. So if you're listening right now and you're like, I'm afraid of I have fear about negotiating, it just tells you that now maybe you need to work on people pleasing or not give a crap what someone else thinks about you. I'm not good with investment. Maybe you just need to learn the simple ways of investing. I'm not whatever it is you think you're not good at when it comes to your finances, it can be changed, but you have to understand that there is truth that you will see. But, one of the things that I believe by is the truth will set you free. And really, this can set you free.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you really want to know your truth, or you want to know the truth about someone, you look at their calendar and you look at their finances. That's going to tell you pretty much everything you need to know. It's going to tell you what they value, what they want to spend their time doing, all those sorts of things. And so I think you hit the nail on the head there. And I think it's hard as physicians because we don't have that education. And then we have tons of student debt, a lot of us. And then we go to residency and we, make pennies compared to the hours that we work. And then you come out and you're an attending and all of a sudden you're getting the doctor's salary. And I think it's really hard for folks to go from a residency salary to an attending salary without any education. Then a lot of folks feel like, hey, now I'm owed that doctor lifestyle. I've spent med school and my residency, given up my 20s or my early 30s, and I've missed out on all these things. Now it's time to buy the fancy house and the Tesla and, all the above. And so I think it's really hard for folks to delay that lifestyle creep and put that money towards assets that are going to pay for those lifestyle things in the future. What are your thoughts in regards to that?
I think there is a part, you're absolutely correct, that it is perceived as hard. Part of the reason why we think it's hard and we say it's hard is because as a culture, we've accepted that it's hard. However, as physicians, we're badass. We've done things that are harder than money, right? We've done things that are harder than real estate. So what I tell people is there's actually only a few things that are truly hard for physicians. Most of the things that are hard for us or perceived as hard feels that way because they're actually easy. We're just looking up instead of looking down, right? So it's like, it's not actually hard. It just takes intention, right? And it's easier to say it's hard for me to say it's because I've not made the decision to block out my calendar. All you need is an hour a week to make a difference in your finances forever. Every physician has an hour a week, but it's easy for us to say I don't have time because everybody believes that we don't have time. The only person that will not buy that is your mentor, your coach, or people that have done it because now I'm like, I get it. Me too. And we can find an hour a week for you to do your money. And literally, I think if there's anything anybody takes away from this conversation, it's all you need is 1 hour a week in your numbers to make a change in your financial trajectory, potentially for generations. 1 hour a week.
Let's pull that string a little bit. So let's say I am a new attending. It's my first year. I'm struggling as an attending, the time, all the above, and I have that 1 hour. How can I make the most difference with that 1 hour that I have for my finances?
Absolutely. I kind of give people a little grace at the beginning of their attending life because you're doing your board. All you can think about is your boards. And I'm like, okay, the most important thing is don't make too many changes in that time. Just focus on your board. Be glad you don't make like 5 figures, anymore. But hold that conversation. Don't make too many changes yet until when you're done with your board. And now that you're done with your boards, the first question is, what are you actually earning? What is coming in? Many people don't actually know what they're earning. And that can be from one income source, that can be from multiple income sources, but how much are you actually earning? The other question that I like to ask, which would be nice if you asked before you actually got the job, was making sure that you actually are negotiating well for the work that you're going to be doing. Because we know based on data that not everyone, even in academic W-2 settings, are offered the same amount. So hopefully you negotiate it well. But if you did not negotiate well, you can still negotiate later on. So having the conversation with your colleagues and getting to know what other people are earning, I think we need to be more transparent about that. Then the next one is now, where is your money going? Where is your money going? When the money hits your account, what does it do for you? And the analogy that I like to use for this is, we live in a house right now. We have cameras. So if someone comes into the door, we see them come in. The question is, where are they going in the house? Are they going into the dining room, the living room, the kitchen, the bathroom? Where do people go after they hit the door? And the same thing is true with your money. When the money hits your account, where is it going? Is it going to a bunch of YOLOs? Is it going into paying for credit card debt? Is it going to pay for just get the data. You don't have to make it about you. The problem is that people make it about them. They internalize it. They think my money reflects me. When your money doesn't reflect you, your money just reflects your decisions. And if you can decide to turn right today, you can decide to turn left tomorrow. It's the same thing when literally, let's just make it easy. Let's make it simple. So where is your money going? That's the next question. If I sit you down right now and I ask you what your goals and your priorities are for the next 5 years, what would you like to see in your life in the next 5 years? You're like, I'd like to work part-time. I'd like to be able to take a vacation a couple of times a year. I'd like to have this amount in net worth. I'd like to have this amount left in my debt or not at all. Like, what do you want to see in 5 years from now? Like, just dream on paper and pick out like the top 5 goals you have for the next 5 years. And now the question is your money, where your money going, aligning in a way to create that? If it's not, then all you have to do is just make changes. If you're like, I want to have $1 million net worth in 5 years, that means you have to invest over the next 5 years, right? Do you want to do that in the stock market? Do you want to do that outside of the stock market? And I think especially as people are starting, it's good to have a baseline. And many of the people that I work with are busy women physicians. They may be parents or not have parent or not be parent. They may have businesses outside of clinical work. So our time is of value. You don't have time to be babysitting the stock market for its return. So doing more of like a set it and forget it baseline foundation where you look in the future and you're like, if I don't do anything else, I'm going to have multiple 7 figures in 10 years, in 15 years. Just set that baseline. Then now do other fun, crazy things like real estate and, all those other things that I'm sure we're going to touch upon. But the important thing is, what are you earning? Where is your money going? Is it aligning with what you want to see in 5 years? And make sure that investing is part of that. One of the things that annoys me when we're talking about personal finance is I think there's so much emphasis on budgeting that it actually pisses me off a lot. And it actually literally annoys me. And the reason why it annoys me is that many times we avoid conversations around money. And then when we get in, if all that's been talked about is budgeting, I'm like, budgeting is not the goal. Budgeting is just the means to the end. The end is investment. Investment is actually what creates freedom. Investment is what helps you not overwork like crazy. Investment is what builds your net worth without you having to exchange money for time, 1-to-1 ratio forever. So again, let's not talk too much about budgeting humans. Budgeting is perfect for procrastinators. When people want to procrastinate, they talk about budgeting apps. Like, look at where your money is going, but that should be, I would say, maybe about 15% of your financial energy. The rest of it should be about where are you putting your money? What vehicles are going to help you get to the finish line without you driving to pieces? That way, you can spend your time, your energy on other things that matter outside of money. Because at the end of the day, money is a tool. Money is something that gets you to a place. But what is that place you want to go to? That's where your time, your attention, your energy, those are the currencies that you truly, truly need. And money's goal is to help you get those currencies so you can spend it on the things that actually do matter.
I love that. Yeah, those 4 simple steps that you mentioned, great way to get started. I can also guarantee you're not going to budget your way to financial freedom. So yeah, I agree with you there wholeheartedly. And I think about my buddy Brian Lubin with Action Academy podcast talks a lot about periods of navigation and acceleration. And basically the analogy is like, hey, you're in your car, you're going on a road trip, you're figuring out where you're going to go. You're probably going to take some time to navigate, figure out, hey, what's the best path to get there? Then you're going to put your foot on the gas. And that's exactly what you're saying. You have that initial time period to navigate, do maybe your 15% of budgeting, figure out what path you want to take, setting your baseline investments that set it, forget it. And then you're accelerating towards what you love and what you really want to do. And you're on that road to financial freedom. And so I think it's a really great way to think about it. Going back to your journey as a gastroenterologist, what was that pivot like when you realized like, hey, money is this tool. I want to utilize this tool. I want to utilize this to practice medicine and live life how I want to. How did that transition happen for you? Let's take a quick break to hear a word from our sponsors. As a physician, balancing your medical career with a growing real estate portfolio can be challenging. That's where Dr. Doc comes in. They don't just offer loans, they provide tailored financial solutions designed by doctors for doctors. Dr. Doc has already helped customers secure millions fast, headache-free funding for their real estate investments. With their streamlined process, you get quick liquidity, no prepayment penalties, and a soft credit check. meaning no impact on your credit score if a deal falls through. Looking to expand your investment property portfolio? Doc to Doc offers competitive rates and customized options to help you build wealth and diversify your assets. They also offer solutions for consolidating debt or home improvements. Join the thousands of doctors who trust Doc to Doc for fast funding and personalized support. Say goodbye to financial roadblocks and hello to your next investment success.
That transition, there were multiple points in time. So when, like many people, when you start learning about money, debt is the first thing you think about. And I did not know a lot about money. So I just thought, okay, I've heard that you pay off your debt. And so I focused on paying off my debt. My goal was to pay off my student loans. I had 6-figure. I wanted to pay it off in 5 years. I ended up paying it off in 2.5 years. And then at that point, though, I had no debt, but I still wasn't free. I still was afraid of losing my job. I still could not rest well, knowing that if something happened to my clinical income, my family would be negatively impacted. And that's when I realized that debt is only one piece of the puzzle, and debt-free is not the goal. Debt freedom of mind is the goal. So after that was when I started focusing on real estate, and it's funny because I had to sell my husband on us paying off my student debt. I was like, babe, listen, if we have no debt, we'll be free. And then we paid off the debt. And I was like, babe, actually, if we're free, it's not debt, it's investment. And it was like, wait, I'm like, that's what I thought too. So that's when we started learning about real estate investment. We started investing in small multifamily residentials in California and Washington State. And we've been doing that now since 2019. And that's been a part of like our own vehicle to life freedom is what I call it, life freedom and financial liberation. But again, I have to say, and maybe I just didn't have big dreams. And I'm sharing this because there are people in your audience where maybe they don't have big dreams. My dream was just to be a good doctor. And then my dream was, let me just help a few physicians do this. And my dream, my freedom is the most important thing to me. If you take away my freedom, we're dead. Like our souls are dead, right? And you know that as a military person that has sacrificed many years for us to have that freedom. And I want to say thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for sacrificing that. It's not free. Someone paid for it. So thank you for doing that for us. But I truly, truly believe that when we have freedom, we don't have freedom. Our souls literally are now going to start dying. And so for me, I just had small goals. I just had small dreams, right? But then it was after I saw the fact that there's so many physicians that are negatively impacted by being trapped financially, sort of like increased my mission and my vision for helping more physicians. But I've continued to be a GI doctor throughout it. I was W-2 until 2 years ago when my husband and I decided that we wanted to travel. And again, it felt like the right thing that we were supposed to do. It felt like a pull. We're not running away from burnout. It just felt like this is what we're meant to do. And so I quit my W-2 job. They were like, oh, maybe we can save your spot. I was like, you know what? I don't know who I'm going to be at the end of this. I just feel like I'm meant to just break it up and leave. And so that's what we did with our 3 kids. We traveled around the world for a year, came back last year. I love medicine. So I'm still practicing medicine, but per diem about 6 to 8 times a month, it fits into the other hats that I wear as a business owner, as a leader, as a coach, as a mom, as a, faith leader as well.
That's amazing. Yeah, so cool to see your journey. And I think a lot of folks listening to this are trapped by the golden stethoscope, I like to say, instead of the golden handcuffs. But it's the same thing. And it's tough. And it's tough too. And I'm kind of interested to hear your thoughts on this too. I think a lot of people struggle with their identity getting wrapped up in the fact that they're a doctor, their identity getting wrapped up in the white coat and thinking that, hey, I worked so hard for this. If I step back or if I quit, I'm just throwing this away and I don't know who I'm going to be. What was that like for you when you quit your W-2? Did you struggle with any of those internal struggles of this is taken so much of my time and kind of created me to who I am at that point? Was that something that was hard for you?
It was hard for me, but what was not optional was for me to stay and continue the status quo. So if you're trying to leave something, you need to figure out the thoughts that you need to tell yourself to make it intolerable for you to stay, right? When it becomes intolerable for you to stay, you literally have no choice but to move, but to go to whatever that thing is that you're trying to go to. And now the question becomes, what do I need? What do I need? And I think many people don't answer that question strategically, right? What do I need? And so that was a question that I asked myself. I'm a huge believer in coaching. It's changed my life. It's changed the life of the people that I get to serve as well. So I know that most answers to problems is going to be a who, right? So I specifically look for a one-on-one coach. You would say, Latifat, are you quitting your job and you're spending to get a coach? Because yes, I know that coaching literally is a hack, right? So found a coach specifically for that transition because I knew without a doubt, I was humble enough to know that I was going to need help. And I did need help, but honestly, just knowing that I had someone to talk to was helpful by itself. But I've coached many physicians through that transition, whether, they're taking a sabbatical. We have people in our community that they're taking 3 months, 4 months, and the struggle is real. But I will tell you that with most things that are going to be the best things you've ever done, it will feel hard because you literally are taking off a jacket that you've worn forever. When you're like, a lot of our identity is being a physician. You see your patients, you get up every day with a purpose, knowing that you're going to save lives. At the worst case scenario, I can say I saved a life at some point. Now that's not going to be there anymore. So you're like, who am I? Who am I outside of this? Who am I as not a title, not as a physician, not as a lifesaver, but Latifat as a human. For me, Latifat as a child of God, like, who am I? And I will tell you that the answers to those questions will change your life if you let it. But just be humble enough to ask yourself, what support do I need to make it less hard? Because it will be hard, but it is worth doing. And that decision honestly has changed my life. Top 3 decisions that I made in my life was quitting and traveling. It's changed my life. I'm more of who I am meant to be. I still serve humans. I serve my family. I'm more present. Like, I was a good doctor before I traveled, and not to brag, but I was, voted top doc multiple times, if that means anything to your audience. My patients love me. Like, I was a good doctor. I would have one of the highest ratings from patients in the region. So I was not a bad doctor before, but I can legitimately say that I'm an even better doctor because I'm more human. I don't have to know it all. It doesn't have to be perfect. But based on what I hear from my patients over and over now, the difference is obvious. And I think that difference was because I was willing to let myself go through that identity shift. But really, it's not even an identity shift. It's like reclaiming back to my core, getting down to my roots of who am I as a human being.
Cool. That was awesome. I'm personally going to go back and listen to the last 5 minutes of that because it's hard. I'm kind of in that transitionary process we were talking about before the podcast, how I'm getting ready to separate from the military and kind of figuring out next steps, taking about 3 months off to spend some time with the family and travel as well. And really looking forward to that and looking forward to the insights that are going to come from that. So I think that's great. Let's take a quick break to hear a word from our sponsors. As a physician, balancing your medical career with a growing real estate portfolio can be challenging. That's where Dr. Doc comes in. They don't just offer loans, they provide tailored financial solutions designed by doctors for doctors. Dr. Doc has already helped customers secure millions fast, headache-free funding for their real estate investments. With their streamlined process, you get quick liquidity, no prepayment penalties, and a soft credit check, meaning no impact on your credit score if a deal falls through. Looking to expand your investment property portfolio? Dr. Doc offers competitive rates and customized options to help you build wealth and diversify your assets. They also offer solutions for consolidating debt or home improvements. Join the thousands of doctors who trust Dr. Doc for fast funding and personalized support. Say goodbye to financial roadblocks and hello to your next investment success. If folks are listening to this and they just kind of glazed over what we just talked about, I just wanted to foot stomp one thing that you said. And it's finding the right who. That is something that I had heard many times oh, your network is so important. Your network's your net worth, finding the right who, get the right people on the bus, all those sorts of things. And I never really thought about it seriously. And I tell you what, over the last year and a half, 2 years since I've been doing the podcast and really focusing on real estate and entrepreneurship, I could not agree more with where that is. Or sorry, with that truth. And I would not be where I am today. I would not be in the position to take 3 months off to hang out with my family and travel all over and practice medicine part-time just because I love seeing patients coming up if it wasn't for that. And so I just want to foot stomp that like the sooner you realize that I'm not in this journey alone, that the who is what matters. And the worst thing that happens if you quit your job is you just go back and get another one. Like your biggest fear is your present day reality. There's always going to be more doctor jobs that are available out there for folks. And so once you realize those things, once I've realized those things, it was like a whole weight came off. And just, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that.
And I have to say that I think about it as an act of kindness. Finding the right support is an act of kindness to yourself. You already know that you're going to have a hard time. So it's an act of, it's investing in that future version of yourself to find the right environment, whatever that is, whether it's like a community or whatever it is, like it's an act of kindness. But I also want to say that thought of it is hard to take a break, it is legit, right? I mean, think about it. I was a W-2 physician, even though I had multiple sources of income. I was a W-2 income physician. So regardless of what happens, you know that money was coming, right? And so it's almost like this, was a Pavlov, whatever that experiment is like with behavioral, whatever, like every time you know that money is coming. So now here you are, that money may not come. And it literally could feel like you're walking out in New York City in winter without pants on. You're like, it's going to be cold out there, right? And I want to let you know that many of these are actually thoughts. There is a fact, and you want to make sure like you take care of the fact is you have money taken care of, you're good with your money, you've invested your money, you have multiple sources of income and all of that stuff. But the fear is still there. And I will tell you that when even as a coach that teaches people about money, that has taken care of her own finances to an extent, I had those fears still. And I literally listed out like 7 things, 7 sources of income. And my brain was still freaking out. My brain, and I'm saying this because it is not all conscious. Some of this is subconscious. My brain was still freaking out. Do you want to know what I told my brain that made it finally rest?
I would love to.
I said, if worst come to the worst, I would go sleep on my sister's couch. And my brain finally was like, we have a plan. Forget the fact that I have like multi-layer lasagna plan, right? So if you're feeling that fear, it is normal. And sometimes you need to tell your brain some sweet nothings until it calms the heck down. That was my sweet nothing. The sister whose couch I was going to go sleep on lives in the UK, by the way. So like, it doesn't make sense. But it's okay to be kind to your brain and giving it the sweet nothings, as long as you've taken care of the fact and making sure that your finances are otherwise taken care of.
That's great. Yeah, the brain's just trying to protect you. I mean, that's the whole purpose. And so, yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. And I love that. And hopefully folks have gotten a lot out of it. I feel like these are the conversations that are so important to have. This is the place that, a lot of people are in, and they're wrestling with some of these thoughts and ideas, because medicine, it's hard. It's a hard job. It's a lot of work. Burnout's a real thing. And, you have to do what's best for yourself, what's best for your family, and what's best for your patients. And sometimes that is putting yourself first and putting your family first. And maybe it is taking that sabbatical or finding another job or working part-time. But it all does kind of come back to the fact that like some degree of income coming in from an alternative source, some degree of financial freedom is going to give you that protective factor. It's going to give you that ability to step back or to make those changes and quiet down the brain, as you said before. So I think that's really important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The next book that's coming out next month, which I'm so excited about, it's going to be called The Power to Choose. And what you're describing is exactly that. That is what physicians need. And I'm all for financial independence. I'm all for financial freedom, but just need the power to choose. And the question is, ask yourself the hard question, the uncomfortable question of what would need to change for me to have the power to choose. And this is not about leaving medicine. This is about becoming a better doctor, right? And if we look at 2025 and the future going forward, in order to be a good doctor, you have to be willing to walk. Because if you're not willing to walk, you will compromise. You will make decisions, but you will burn out faster. So what we're talking about here, it's not just like cool to have. This is also about surviving. When we talk about mental health, we talk about suicide. That's one of the things that I honestly was one of the reasons why I decided to do what I do, is because if you look at the data with suicide among physicians, it is high. And part of it is because I hear over and over and over again, I feel trapped. So wealth is great. I want you to have wealth. I want you to reach that FI number. But at the very basic core of your safety, your security, your wellness is your power to choose. So this is not a cute thing to have. This is literally you grabbing a life jacket so that your family can enjoy you for a longer period of time, so that your community can enjoy you for a long period of time, so that your kid can have a story where they get to have their parents for longer potentially because you were alive, not just physically alive, but also like mental, your soul, your spirit, the essence of who you are, which is one of the biggest legacies that we can pass on to our families, who we are, not just the paycheck we bring.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah, the amount of physician suicide is unbelievable. Residents, attendings, all the above, medical students. I mean, family medicine has the highest suicide rate, or one of the highest suicide rates, and it's exactly what you're saying. It's the feeling of feeling trapped. It's the pressure of everyone else telling you have to see more patients with less time and do more with less staff. And then it's that Hippocratic oath that you took to do no harm, and so you feel the full weight of that, on top of, patient expectation, administrators' expectation, the system's expectation, and it's just overwhelming for folks. And until they have that outlet or have those folks that they can talk to or have that community, it's really overwhelming. And I welcome anyone who's listening to this. If you're in that spot, like, please sign up to talk with me on the website, reach out on Instagram, send me an email at alex@physiciansandproperties.com. Like, more than happy to talk with anyone about this, because just one suicide is way too many. And unfortunately, there's way more than one. And so, we're here for you. Absolutely. If that's something that you're struggling with. And I think that's why what we're talking about is so important, because you can kind of hit that survive, arrive, and thrive in terms of financial freedom, and figure out what that looks like for you. And hey, what is that number that I need coming in where me and my family can survive and our basic needs can be met? Okay, so we hit that, and then we've arrived. Like, hey, okay, what can we do? What's our cash flow number? What's our number that we need that we can have a decent quality of life? Okay, and then now we're hitting the thrive in terms of, hey, we're living the life of our dreams. And that all takes getting started, which is so important. So anyways, yeah, really, really glad that you shared that. We were able to touch on that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, thank you I call that minimum number, I call it the minimum viable expense. So if push comes to shove, what is the absolute minimum number that you need to thrive, to survive? It's food, shelter, transportation. Like, what is that number? For most people, it's actually not high. Because if push comes to shove, I would literally rent out my house and go rent like a 2-bedroom. My kids can share a room. So what is that minimum viable number? And it is a practical number, but this is also like there's a mental math to it, right? And I tell people, if you realize how low that number is, you would see that you have a choice even now, that your income that you're earning every month, if push comes to shove, can actually take you for longer. Right? That's not where we want you to live, of course, right? No one should be like living on a diet forever, but it's a matter of like that mental safety. And then now, how do I replace that number outside of my clinical income? How do I replace that number outside? It doesn't take a lot of time. It just takes creative learning, asking the right question, and taking action. And after that minimum viable is now the comfortable number. And then I'll like the bougie number about that. But you can take this at a level to level. But the very, very basic thing is you need to figure out what that minimum viable expense for you is for you, and set your goals on how am I going to replace that with a not clinical income. And there are many ways, which is, Alex talks about and brings people on the podcast to share about as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Well, let's turn to a more cheerful topic. Let's talk about traveling around the world for a year, which is absolutely amazing. What gave you the idea, or what was that tipping point of you're like, hey, it's time, let's do this. Let's pack up the family and let's go. What was that like for you?
It was traveling around the world was not a bucket list item for me. It was not. I just never thought about it. I never imagined it. But I will be completely honest with you. It was in 2022, I had gone to Aruba to speak. My husband went with me, and we found out that most people in Aruba speak multiple languages. So at some point, we're like, how nice would it be for our kids to be exposed to multiple languages? Imagine what that could do to their brain. And we're like, that would be awesome to be in a place like this for like 3 months or 6 months. But I'm like, oh, I'm a physician. Ain't nobody going to give me 6 months vacation. So we just like tossed it up. And then we got home. And about a month later, my husband was like, that thing we talked about, if you want to do it, I'm down. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I thought we were joking. Right. And so we just sat on it for a little bit because, again, this was never a dream of mine. We sat on it for a little bit, meaning like 6 months later, I quit my job. So it wasn't like a long time. But once we just knew that this felt like what we were meant to do, I was not leaving because I was burnt out. And I'm sharing that not to brag, but to let people know you don't have to be dying to change your circumstance. I was not burnt out. I just knew that that was what my soul, my spirit was calling for. And so I told my chief and I was like, I'm going to believe in it. And I think I gave him 6 months notice, really. And so we took our kids out of school. Our kids were 5 to 10 at that time. Now they're older. They're, you can add a year or 2 years to that. But we took them out and it was really, really scary because I had a moment where we started in Curacao where we had all of our suitcase. And I was like, did I just make the biggest mistake of my life? Taking my kids out of school, going to countries I don't know anybody, but we're like, you know what? That's the whole point of this. One of the things we like to ask ourselves is our expectations. And for those that are listening, it's always important to make sure you deciding what the expectations are for yourself, not based on what people's expectations of you are. So as we started traveling, we decided we're not going to do a bunch of bucket list stuff. We wanted to travel. We were more travelers than vacationers. But then the other question we asked ourselves was, what's the biggest gift that we want to give ourselves now that we've never given ourselves before? And for us, that was flexibility. So we said we were flexible. If something comes up that sounds amazing, we will evaluate and we'll do it. So our goal at the beginning was to do 10 countries, but we said if we're inspired, we'll do more. And that's what led us to 20 countries. So literally, we were in Aruba with some friends. And they were like, oh, we're doing a Spartan race in south of France. And we're like, you know what? That'll be fun. Let's add on a Spartan race in south of France. So we added Switzerland. From Switzerland, we drove to south of France. So we just gave ourselves the gift of space, the gift of less, right? And that was the other thing as well. We did not want to be busy in a different time zone. So my husband was an IT consultant, literally dropped almost all of his clients. I did the barest minimum possible. I probably did 2 hours of Money Fit MD coaching, 2 to 10 hours max a week, right? So really everything was down to the bare minimum. And we just got to live life, experience ourselves, experience our kids. I remember, I think it was the first month after we started traveling. We were in Curacao by the water. My kids were on a swing. Something that simple. And I just had a moment where I just was staring at, and I was just nowhere to rush to. I just stared at them and I was like, how beautiful they were. And I just started tearing up because after going as a physician, like most physicians are, I knew my kids, I saw my kids, I spent time with my kids, but I did not linger. And that moment just imprinted in my own brain, just the importance of just slowing down. I teared up just seeing my kids, really seeing them. And I think that we're at the end of the day, when you look back on our lives, you look back at your life, you look back on my life, you're never going to wish you did one more shit. You may wish you helped one more person. You may wish you taught your kids how to bike, but I think there's just a call for us to slow down a little bit. I don't plan on retiring from medicine because what do I have to retire for? Because I'm living a life that's well-paced, even right now. And I can practice medicine till I'm 80, 89, if I want to, if I'm able to. But again, the power of choice. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. 20 countries, awesome experiences. What was your top country and maybe top experience that you had?
I will say top 3 countries because it's hard to pick one. One is because I'm biased. I'm from Nigeria originally, so Nigeria is there. Portugal, I love Portugal. Okay, I'm going to add a fourth one, sorry. Curacao, I love Curacao. Curacao just felt like home. There was just down to earth, normal humans, no pretension, like no pretense. And I'm going to have to add Southeast Asia, which is not a country, but yeah.
We'll let it slide.
In Southeast Asia, I ate my face out and it was so good. So those would be my top ones.
That's awesome. Yeah, my wife and I, we did our honeymoon to Thailand, and I probably gained like 10 pounds, and then I got a terrible GI bug at the end of the trip. And so I lost a lot of weight, but it was a great experience. But yeah, I love that. I was thinking as you were telling your story about your sons or your kids on the swing in Curacao, and that moment of just slowing down. And it's so hard to slow down in America. And we have a camper and we do a lot of camping, my family. That was the best investment I ever made because it forces you to slow down. And I personally love camping where there's no cell service and where there's no internet. We just go boondocking and just get into a bunch of shenanigans. And it's just the best. And I would encourage folks to think about like, hey, how can I slow down, whether that's just for an afternoon or whether that's just for a day, and just turn the phone off and get off the social media and get off the internet and just spend that time with the people that matter most. Cause gosh, it's beautiful. I mean, we're getting ready to do a 3.5 week trip coming up in May and June. And I just can't wait for that, to just have that time uninterrupted with my family. Cause that's what matters the most.
Absolutely. And when you set up your finances in a way that you're not having to think, oh, if I don't work, I'm not going to earn, right? That is the whole point of setting things up. I mean, every week, I have half a day that I spend in this room. If you call me, I ain't going to pick up. I'm just here resting, meditating, praying. Everybody that knows me know if you have one call only to make, you don't call me on that day at that time, because for that afternoon, I ain't going to pick up. I don't earn money. I could earn money. I could earn a lot of money if I was going to exchange that time for money. But I don't need to, because I set things up, number one. But also, many of us and your audience are leaders. When you're a leader, you have to take time to rest. You can't pour out of an empty container. So set your finances up, which is investment, in a way that helps you earn even when you rest, right? And you still may need to work on your mindset and the fear of not overworking, because so many of us sort of like cuffed into that system of overworking, which is why we grind to pieces.
Yeah, I heard something from Stacey Gray. She does a lot of organizing businesses to scale. She's amazing. And she said, you need to have a day to think. You need to have a day to think, and you need to have a day to do. You can't do both. And I love that. And, I honestly haven't done that. And I really want to, because I know it would be beneficial, because it just forces you to slow down. It forces you to think through and use that time to solve the big problems in your business or some problems that are in life, or figure out that question we asked earlier of who am I, who do I want to be, and what's next? And so it's just a beautiful thing to think about. And so I'm looking forward to, as things slow down after the Air Force, having some time, having that day to think, having that day to get things done.
And I consider that thinking it's a skill that most people actually don't know. And I did not know that. As a physician, we've spent so much time learning. We believe we know how to think. But I did not know that I did not know how to think until I learned how to think. And I'm happy to send a link to two books that I think could be helpful for your audience about how to. It's so good to think that when you learn how to think, you start looking for problems to solve. Be like, what other problems do I have in my life that I need to think about? Because I know how to think now, right? And one problem is like thinking through writing. But I'll send those to you. So
please do. That would be great. Yeah, and I think being an entrepreneur, we're always solving problems. I mean, that's entrepreneurship, is solving a problem and then going on to the next problem and hoping the first one you solve doesn't break, which is awesome. Well, I want to be respectful of your time. I could talk to you all night long, but I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. Anything that you want to hit on before we wrap things up?
No, I just want to say thank you for inviting me as well. Just a reminder to your audience, like, if you're listening to this, you've probably done some of the hardest things. And anytime you encounter something that feels hard, I just want you to create that habit of stopping and thinking, okay, if it's hard for me, it means that I'm overthinking it, because everything that is hard, if you're on this level, if it's also at that level, it would be easy for you. So the only reason why it's hard is because it's easier than everything you've ever done. So there's literally nothing you cannot, like almost nothing you cannot solve because you've already proven that you can solve the hardest problems. So just give yourself the gift of time, the gift of space, take care of yourself. And if you're afraid of investing, you should be more afraid of not investing, because at the end of the day, your life matters, your energy matters. And one of the things that I like to do as an exercise is I like to ask my 80-year-old self what she would do. So even when it came to traveling, the question was to my 80-year-old self, what would she be proud of that I did today? What decisions would she want me to take? Because if I had no money, if I was not investing and I wanted to like take a year-long trip, my 80-year-old self would go sit your butt down and get your money in order, because we ain't going to be broke at 80. We want to be able to like afford some bougie senior housing at age 80. Let's give out. You better not travel now yet. Do that first and then you can travel. But I had done those things. And that meant that when I was asking my 80-year-old self for wisdom of like, should I travel? Should I not travel? She would whack me and go, why did you not travel when our hips worked, when our joints worked? So, just take care of yourself, but don't run away from wisdom. Wisdom is here to help you.
That is so good. Well, I think that is a perfect place to wrap things up. I know you do a lot of coaching. You have a heart for female physicians who are badass. How can folks reach out to you? How can folks learn more about what you're doing at MoneyFit MD?
The easiest way is if you're watching on YouTube or on a podcast, you can literally just find MoneyFit MD podcast. I release an episode every week. You can learn about money, how to think about money, how to grow wealth in a way that is wholesome. But also, if you want to send me an email, you can go to Dr. Latifat at moneyfitmd.com, or you can just go to my website, moneyfitmd.com. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. We're here to serve. We're here to help more physicians, and specifically more women physicians. But I have a good number of my audience that are men, because they email me about the podcast episodes. And I just want to say thank you to them as well if they're listening to this. You guys are all important. And it's an honor to serve you here and wherever else.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. This was fantastic. We'll include all the links in the show notes as well if folks want to connect with Dr. Latifat and MoneyFit MD. This has been awesome. With that, it's been another episode of the Physicians and Properties Podcast with Dr. Latifat and Dr. Alex Schloe. Signing off. Hey, real quick, if you're still listening to this, I'm assuming you got value from it. So I need your help specifically. My 2-year vision with this podcast is to help 100,000 physicians learn how investing in real estate can give you the freedom to practice medicine and live life how you want. There are 2 main ways that a podcast grows. One is through ratings and reviews, and the other is word of mouth. If you can please leave me a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, as well as send this to 1 to 2 friends that you think would get value from it, we can reach the physicians that we want to reach. Thanks in advance, and talk to you on the next episode. Please note that the information shared on this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial or medical advice. The views expressed on this podcast are those of the host and the guest and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Department of Defense or the United States Air Force.